Hey kids, it's Old Man shouting at clouds, and now with others too. Chatting about the CFL is what they're going to do. Some have no contacts and others have no clues. Everyone will tell us all their quirky football views. Hear what Old Man and others know. It's the CFL Outsiders show.
Hey GT, what are we going to do this week?
Same thing we do every week, old man. Take over the CFL.
Hey kids, welcome back to another episode of the CFL Outsiders. I remain, as always, your 100% impartial, completely unbiased co-host, Old Man, shouting at clouds. And joining me as usual tonight is GT in his Canada Day Canada Celebration outfit.
Hey, this is hey, how you doing? Welcome aboard again. This is left over from I can't see. I don't know if you can see it at the bottom, but below it, it's got the year on it because this is left over from the 1988 Calgary Winter Olympics. This is the official sweatshirt, so I figured it's as Canada as you can get on Canada Day. So there you go.
Yeah, and it gets Calgary in there for you. So hey,
absolutely,
I like it. And then we've got a slight change this week. Unfortunately, MJ's on the one-game list. So, off the bench, we like to keep it simple around here. It's MJ. Hi, MJ, too.
Hey, yes, coming to you from Calgary, but representing the Ticats. But I like the sweater. It's great.
Thank you.
And you picked a good week to be the guest co-host if you want to talk Hamilton, because...
I feel like this is the only week, and I love that I'm stealing MJ's thunder. Not the only.
Hopefully she'll get a chance to talk about a second win before the season's over.
Sure hope so.
Actually, they look pretty good. But I'm going to start off here with a bit of a rant. I do this every now and then when I get annoyed at something that's going on out there, and I've got one here. And this rant today is, are you ready to rant? I guess it's directed at the football gods, frankly, because I'm getting a little sick of how you're handling this year. I know your job as football gods is to keep things interesting, to move things around, get somebody hurt here and there. Maybe somebody makes a silly mistake. But come on, what's with all the injuries so far this season? We're 4 games in, so not even a quarter of the way in. Last week, of our 8 quarterbacks, 3 of them were the starters that were intended to be there, and the rest were all backups. The 3 that were there are all playing at least 1 game less because they've all had a bye. In fact, 4, because Calgary had the bye last week. So anybody that's played the full 4 games has lost their starting quarterbacks. ESN went out and put up this beautiful new opening to Friday Night Football with the players all singing. There's 17 of them. I counted. 7 of them are off injured. And those are your best stars in the league. So come on, give us a break. Let's let some of these people come back and maybe we can get some real good football rather than the excitement we get with the backups in there. And that's about it. No one really to rant to on it, but I can't believe what we're getting with just the number of injuries that are out there.
Yeah.
And moving on. Oh,
even in game, there was a few more. And yeah, just it's crazy again. But, there was that year a couple of years ago where I think there was 7 out of 8 starting quarterbacks were down. So it happens. But we need those guys back for sure.
I didn't even get into the sort of lesser stars, but there's at least 3 teams that are really struggling on their O-lines because of injuries. There's defenses that are there. It's a little bit ridiculous, but hopefully we're getting a bunch of it out of the way early and a lot of these players will be back and maybe the last half of the season will be a real barn burner. I have to do a mea culpa here.
We're sorry, so sorry.
Because I was just sort of riffing last week when we were talking about the games, and I've been very impressed with Daniel Campbell for the Riders playing left tackle. Huh? I don't know who Daniel Campbell is. If he plays left tackle somewhere, he's nowhere near as good as Daniel Johnson, who's playing left tackle for the Riders this year. So my apologies, Mr. Johnson. I was talking about you. Great job in there. Shaky start to the week this week, first couple of plays, but it was good from there. So that's all cleared up now.
All right. Well, you could have called him anything, and I would have believed you. So.
I didn't even realize it until I was doing the editing. I thought, what the hell is that? But we got it right anyway. And then just the other thing real quick is I talk each week about my fantasy in the Podcasters Fantasy League. Had a good week this week. Managed to pick some players that were doing fairly well. I think I ended up 1.5 and a victory over the Elks herd. So I've clawed my way back up to 2-2.
Hey, anytime you beat Edmonton, it's a good thing.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely there. And it was a bit of a decisive victory. So you can feel better about that. We don't have a lot of other stuff to talk about before the game tonight. One of the things was MJ is going to tell us about the new minority ownership in Hamilton.
Yeah, this is really exciting, especially on Canada Day. This is a Canadian story that I think is such a great thing to share. So Marwan Hage just became part owner of the Hamilton Sports Group, and he actually is an immigrant to Canada, moved to Montreal in 1990 and went down to the States, but then came back and played for the Ticats for quite a long time. He got there in 2004 and was on the O-line. If you remember back then, yeah, like such a great place. So he was there for almost 10 years and he started a program called Hage's Heroes. And I think I was trying to look for numbers and I think he gave away something like 5,000 tickets in his time there to kids. And I was helping to feed families. And so he had this whole corner. They had like a huge poster, Hage's Heroes. And it's really exciting to see him back in Hamilton. He never really left the area. He owned some Tim Hortons. And like today, he posted a video of them delivering Timbits or donuts to first responders. So he's always been part of the community and has been awarded for that. In 2009, he won an award as an outstanding sportsmanship. So I just thought, what a great time for Hamilton. Getting someone who was not just a great player, but was such a part of the community to come back in, especially in the owners group. He said on his Instagram, he had an interview and he said, we can only go as far as the community, so we're going to go together. And I thought, this guy gets it. Like Hamilton is smart to bring him in because he is all about the community. And I know when caretaker Bob Young, same thing, like this idea of engaging the community. So I just thought, what a great week for the Ticats. You've got Bo Levi winning the most. You've got Marwan Hage coming back in. And I just thought that's really exciting for Hamilton. And so, yeah, I wanted to just share that today.
They never did say how much of the ownership that he got, though, right? In that, it just said minority, but it never said how big. That's what, and it never put a figure on either the dollar amount or the percent. Yeah, that's what I thought. It'd be interesting to be able to extrapolate the cost versus the share versus the value, you know?
And I think you're totally onto something for them. It's who knows the number he bought in, obviously. I mean, he's got those two franchises, so I don't want to guess, but I think you're onto something of the value of having him on that team. And the work the people in the community already know him. So I think that's really smart for Hamilton Sports Group to get him in that community.
I would have to agree with that. I remember him playing, and he was a character. He was a hell of a good lineman, and he got under the defense's skins a bit. He drew up a few penalties with it, but he was also always a big fan favorite there. So that kind of continuity from player to owner and keeping the same names around the building and everything, and they'll eat that up in Hamilton where tradition is so much a point of what they do.
Yeah, they named him to the all-time Ticats team in that final game in Iverwin. So clearly it means a lot to the community.
Congratulations to Marwan for getting bought in there, and I'm sure it'll be a great addition. Now, before we get into the games, though, GT, you had something else you wanted us to talk about here.
Yeah, I just wanted to go over something that kind of came a little bit out of nowhere, and that was OVO getting involved with the CFL for the first time. OVO, if you're not aware, is the company owned by Drake and his manager, and it's a clothing company that they've had for quite a few years, and it's very well known. It does very big business. It's in with a lot of other leagues around the world, including major soccer all kinds of baseball teams, basketball teams, the NHL, even the NFL. Obviously, Drake and the Raptors has been a huge deal for tie-in there. And so it was interesting that it just kind of came out of nowhere all of a sudden on the weekend. And going back to actually preseason, there was that whole thing about Drake showing up with the big chain with the Saskatchewan logo on it. And what was that about? So I guess maybe that's what this was about. But they just kind of dropped it on late on the weekend, and it was going to be available, all this merchandise, as of yesterday. 10 years ago, this would have been a huge deal with Drake. 5 years ago, it would have been a big deal. This year, I'm not so sure. I think we missed the limit type of thing. I think it's a little bit past, but it's still pretty important. So I went on the CFL website, no mention of it. Not a single thing anywhere today. If it happened yesterday, you think it would at least be on the page in their news somewhere, stories, whatever. Not a single thing. Went on to each of the individual team sites, and the merchandise is there on most, but not all the teams. Winnipeg doesn't show anywhere. Saskatchewan, it's right on the front page. Really well done in Saskatchewan, of course, because they sell merch. BC doesn't even have it. Toronto, where Drake's from, doesn't even have it. He's got millions of followers on his social media sites. You've got to let them know that it's available. Just seems like a fail to me. If you're going to go there, you're going to go there. It's the same T-shirt at every team site with a different, same basic pattern with a different slogan and the team name on each of the sites. And then in the background, when you look at it closely, it lists the number of Grey Cups that each team has won and the years that they won them. So it's not a bad-looking shirt. I wouldn't spend $68 on it, but it's not a bad-looking shirt. And the hats are kind of cool. They have the OVO owl logo, and that's sort of cool to have on your head. So, and then it's got retro-style helmets with each of the team logos on each of the helmets. It's not bad merchandise, but I just think if you're going to do something with that kind of media personality, take advantage of the media personality, put something out there that people know, that the kids, they're not kids anymore, because Drake's not a kid anymore, and none of his fans are kids anymore. But they're still long-term fans, and they are that demographic. They are the 30 to 45-year-old that is now a parent that has kids. And then if you get them going with their kids, you're going to get both generations. And it just seems like a bit of a fail for something that could have been done better.
On the OVO website, it's completely different. The front page for Canada is all these old video clips from CFL games. And
Wow.
yeah. So it's really surprising to me that the CFL has nothing. But I mean, is it surprising? I don't know. Like, I think you were talking in an earlier podcast about like the lackluster merchandise this year, how it doesn't, it's there, but so it's interesting. I haven't checked out the hats, but Hamilton does not have a shirt yet. And I'm wondering if that's like a Toronto Hamilton decision. So it's
No,
interesting.
Hamilton has shirts. You can see them if you go in their store, you go to each of the individual stores and you pop it up, it's there.
On the OVO website. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I'll have to look now.
Yeah. I don't like to be banging on the CFL all the time because, again, we're not the biggest league in the world, but they do seem to mess up the simple stuff so much of the time. Things that should be just easy to do, slam dunks, don't cost a lot of money, just put the time and effort into it, and they find a way to make it look less than what it is.
Yeah. Can you say no Canadian flags on the Montreal jerseys on Canada Day weekend? I mean, Come on.
But the flag on the helmet, the fleur-de-lis or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And that's because they couldn't get them the flags there on time, is what they are saying today. If you can't even do that, come on. That's just logistics. You don't put out something as big as that and make all the noise about it and then not have it executed.
Well, and they do such a good job on Instagram. Like I don't follow a ton, but they've had some really good interviews. They've had all Canada Day weekend. They've been celebrating Canadian players and showing clips of them. And so it's surprising to me that if this is a huge drop, it's Drake, this big Canadian, and they missed out on this opportunity for this big reveal Canada Day weekend when they've been pumping it up so much. Maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's late because, and I said this earlier in the thing, was one of the things Randy said last year before he left was that they were going to announce halftime acts for Grey Cup way earlier than they ever did before. Because if you remember last year, they announced Jonas Brothers in BC in May rather than in October like they normally do. And yet here we are again with no act. I'm just wondering. Could it be Drake? Does this year make more sense, given everything that's going on, to have a Canadian act as the halftime? Yeah.
Think of he has to compete with Lamar because he did the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've got really anything much more to say on this. It does feel. I just wish that they could become a little more detail-oriented in their marketing. This game and this league feels to me like there's so much there that people could fall in love with if you just find a way to get them a bit of an entrance into it. And unfortunately, the CFL seems to drop more of those opportunities than make the most of them. But let's talk about something more positive, like the gameplay. Because at least that was fairly good on the weekend, with some exceptions there. But we'll start with the Thursday nighter where Edmonton went into Winnipeg, and it was 36-23 for Winnipeg in the end. But it was a better game than I was expecting, I gotta say. Edmonton looked like they had some fight in.
Yeah, Edmonton looked like they played 2 quarters rather than 1 quarter and rather than no quarters. So last week they played 1 quarter. This week they played 2 quarters. So they're on the right path. And at some point they'll play 4 quarters and win a game. But Winnipeg, to sum it up, I will, use that quote that's often mangled, and I will do the same. But the rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated. Winnipeg is not going away by the looks of it. They look like they were bound and determined to just show the league again, and whoever was watching that, no, we're not going away. We still own this division. And they just came out of the box and were incredible. And then they kind of let Edmonton back in the second quarter, and then out in the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter just went, okay, enough again, and put it away.
Dembski, was this his 4th touchdown in 3 games? Like, how do you stop? Yeah,
and
Winnipeg,
that was a great touchdown too.
Yes. And apparently they did their best to stop him because he was a game time decision. And he still powered through and performed like that. But now the only caveat that I give to the Bomber fans that are celebrating as hard as they are is I think fully deserved with 3-0. But keep in mind, it's been BC and Edmonton.
Yeah.
You can only play who you play, but that's who they've beaten up on so far. Yeah.
The interesting thing there is there's only 3 teams that haven't played each other, and they're all the 3 best teams. So everybody can say that about their opponents so far. So it's only Calgary and Hamilton. It's only Ottawa and BC. It's only because the only teams that are playing it are Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, and Montreal. So those 3 teams haven't played each other. So we're not going to know until they do.
Yeah. Well, and it's great to have Collaros back. Like, that made a huge difference. The fans went wild when he scored that touchdown, and I just think they've got something going. I don't know if they're in a bye week, but they've got something going, and that's hard to stop.
Well, he did. And again, this is possibly the other person I share this brain with who's the big Rider fan screaming at me about his Bombers. But I will also say, though, that Collaros, what I've seen is he has about 1 or 2 of those games a year, and he was phenomenal. Do I expect that to happen next week again? I don't. Do I expect them to win? Yes, because of the defense that they've got, and the offense is good. But those 3 or 4 touchdown games for Collaros and big passing yards are few and far between because their running game is so good. I look at it from when I'm doing the fantasy picks, and whoever picked Collaros this week was great. The top 6 scorers in my podcast league all had Collaros. Top 5. And then I was number 6 who took Bo instead. But, when he has a game like that, it's great. But I wouldn't count on it. I do think Winnipeg's a very good team, and I think that they're going to be right there at the end of it. They're playing better than I thought. But I am curious to see what happens when they play against either Saskatchewan or Montreal. But even a game against Ottawa, if Drew Brown is in there, that would go a ways to letting me see what they actually are as a team. This Calgary game coming up could be a good good way to answer it, although my fear is that with the linebacker situation Calgary's been going through, even with bringing Kyle Wilson in, I don't know they'll stop that Winnipeg running attack. But I guess that's for later.
I think so far, though, Wheatball is my breakout player of the year. He's having a great start to the year. He made, again, a couple outstanding catches and routes that he's running. He's really been impressive so far for a guy that was down the list there last year. And certainly has showed some promise. But this year, I think he's the breakout player of the year so far. And they're just playing great. I did think Trey Ford stood in the pocket much better. I think he threw from the pocket much better. He hit a couple of nice long passes in that opening drive from the pocket. So I think there was a lot of things for Edmonton to be happy about, but still not enough, and certainly not consistent enough yet. They're going to have to start winning pretty soon, because otherwise they're going to fall behind and just not be able to make it up.
Many seasons that you can come 0-5 and come back, right? Like, especially when this season, like the football gods with injuries, like you never know. Those early wins are up.
Yes, they do. And that's the other thing that's, to me, that their defense is starting to pick up a little bit better, but I still don't know that it feels to me like a team that doesn't know who they are yet. They haven't really figured out what their identity is, what kind of football they want to play. And I think that that's something that'll probably, hopefully, gel over the next 2 or 3 games. And, they'll have the last 2/3 of the season to start actually making a push for something. Even though it was a game with a lot of scoring in that, it, to me, was pretty much what you said, GT. Winnipeg doing what they can do, takes their foot off the gas for a while, which they seem to do in the second and third quarters usually, and then come back and win it.
Yeah, I think the score flattered Edmonton to some extent. I mean, it was 13 points, but it could have been worse just based on play of the game.
Anything else for us to talk about there? No? Okay. So that takes us on to game 2, which was Montreal 17 at Hamilton 35. The main thing that I had confirmed for me this week in this game was that GT and MJ1 are smarter than me. And as a result of that, the podcast took Hamilton in the pick'em this week and got a win, whereas I took Montreal and got a loss. I was quite surprised at how much that Hamilton defense was able to keep MBT looking confused. I expected more out of him. He's been a good quarterback through most of his career. If anything, maybe he gets a little too gunsling happy now and then, but to see him missing and just not being able to make the reads that were there when he saw them, just his accuracy was low. That's what surprised me the most out of that game, I think.
Well, then you have that compared to Bo Levi, who got to that 100-win game. It was an interesting quarterback game for those reasons, because you've got these 2 veteran quarterbacks and one's missing and not connecting, and for whatever reason in that game the Alouettes did not look as prepared, and the Ticats just came out guns ready to go, it felt like.
Well, I thought I thought it was just Montreal's defense played as well as they did. Again, I thought the score doesn't indicate the game, because it was a lot in the fourth at that point, and a lot of scoring in the fourth for Hamilton. And Hamilton drove the ball in the first drive all the way down the field, and Bo looked really good, but then got to the goal line, and Montreal stopped them cold at the goal line. So Montreal's defense, they were playing really well. But their offense was doing nothing. And I really thought that MBT, just as you said, MJ, just wasn't on at all. And listening to the flight deck guys at post-game thing, they were just spitting chicklets about MBT. They were not impressed and not happy at all. And I don't blame him. I agree with you. He looked almost as bad as Mazzoli, and that's pretty bad. I thought Montreal's defense played pretty well. And if you look at it, I mean, at the end of the first quarter, it was chaos, because I was sitting there going, I can't believe it. We're going to have the most outstanding CFL score that's absolutely possible. 1-1 at the end of the fourth quarter. And then there was an interception for Hamilton, and I thought, oh, there goes the 1-1. And then Montreal got it back, and I go, oh, there goes. And then it was, and it ended up being 1-1 at the end of the, at the end of the first quarter. And take that, all you Rouge haters. There you go. It was the most CFL score you can get. Too bad it wasn't a final, but nonetheless, I thought that was great. So that just shows that for all the stuff that was going on the field, there was no scoring at all in the first quarter. It wasn't until late where they really kind of took over. And by that time, I think Montreal's defense just couldn't keep up because their offense was constantly giving the ball back to Hamilton and allowing the Hamilton to just continue to drive.
Well, and Hamilton, I can't pronounce his last name, but that rookie, what a game he had. Like it said, I think 8 tackles and then the
middle linebacker, Verisak.
Yeah, Verisak, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly it. Like, if you can't get fired up and you can't get in as a team, I feel like the Ticats, like, it just really sparked something. And it almost was like a different game in the second half. Yeah, you're right.
And I can't wait to see more of Verisak because, frankly, he was in the right place for that interception and getting a pick.
Yeah, there was 2 Alouette receivers both standing side by side that neither of them should have been there. And then it was like, so he made a great interception and was able to score on it, but MBT shouldn't have thrown the ball. It was just a bad offensive play that he took advantage of, but that's what you have to do. And yeah, he was a great draft choice by the Ticats. He's going to be there. He's Zambiazzi coming next. He's going to be there forever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is, right place, right time for the interception and give him that. But I can't wait to see him with another 4 or 5 full games under his belt because he was playing well. But to me, he was playing like a rookie. He was still playing a little bit more safety than linebacker. He was making sure he had room to get to and make the tackles and that. Once he starts just trusting his instincts and crashing when he reads run and stuff, I think they've got a keeper there. He's going to be very good.
Absolutely.
And then go ahead, MJ.
My nephew, I think, as you know, is an Owls fan. And so, and I think it was after that special team throw where the punter threw the ball, he took off his jersey and threw it down the stairs.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
More than once.
Yeah. Going to be a great CFL fan. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great play, though. That was a well-executed play. That was really a really good play. There were some, again, for all the shenanigans on the weekend, there was still some individual terrific plays. There was that one. There was a Najee Murray hit on the goal line as well, where he just came across and popped somebody. It was unbelievable. But yeah, there was some good stuff. But that was a well-executed play.
And it was also, what a great game if you're a fan of the safety play in the CFL. Because to me, that was almost worth the admission watching Marc-Antoine Dubois on one side and Stavros Katsantonis on the other. They were both having great games back there. And I go back and forth in my mind over which of them is the best safety in the league. It usually has to do with who's played last.
Well, I'll tell you another guy that's making inroads, and we'll talk about him in a little while. But Boulier in BC, put him on that list because he's playing like he's really coming into his own.
He made some very good plays this week. And so unless we've got anything more to talk with him, let's go on to the game that he was in then. Okay, so this is game 3. This was the Saturday night as we're back across all 4 nights for the next, I think, 8 weeks or something until week 12. Anyway, so this was BC 17 at Saskatchewan 37. And my notes that I had was basically it was the battle of the backups. It was one of 2 games that had the backups in there. And unfortunately, Mazzoli still looks like he's struggling badly to pick up what they're doing there. And Mayer didn't have a barn burner game, but he did what was asked of him. He didn't give the ball away. He didn't fumble it, didn't turn it over. And that seems to be what they needed for that win.
Yeah, this is a game that actually the score was kind of indicative of the game because BC just did everything wrong. It was incredible how bad they were in every sense of the game. And Saskatchewan just managed it. That AJ Ouellette running hard the entire game from the beginning to the end. And as I said, my note was AJ running hard, Mayor doing Mayor things. Lots of short sideline passes. He did nothing that was going to, as you just said, man, that was going to get him in trouble. There was one pass that I think went more than 10 yards, and it was a nice one, but the receiver was wide open because BC finally decided to blitz and left the guy wide open down the sideline. It was crazy. So this game, and, we can say, here's another team that you can say, well, they've only played because Saskatchewan's 4-0. They haven't played anybody good yet. And they played, literally, who have they played? They played 3 teams.
Ottawa's the best that you can say because they had Brown in there for them. Just because they haven't played each other, it's hard to get a feel for any of them there.
Yeah, because I honestly didn't think Saskatchewan looked terrific. I just thought they looked okay at best. And it was because BC just did absolutely everything wrong that you could possibly do and still play 60 minutes of football. They fumbled, they intercept, they did nothing. I mean, and Benavides, they couldn't stop the run at all. It was a waste of time. If Benavides, I don't know how he still has a job after last week. He should have never had it to begin with as the DC in BC. And I don't know how he has it after last week. He should, the first coach to be fired, my hot take should be Benavides.
Well, no, like I've said his name wrong, but he had, 100-yard game. Like that's huge. So BC clearly had no answer for what was going on, for anything, right? That was going on. All my notes said penalties, and then we left early.
Yeah. Penalty after penalty. Every time they got some momentum, they buggered it up. It was either a penalty or an interception or a drop ball or something. It was just one thing after another. Here's the note that I put down. They showed the stats at the end of the first quarter. In Saskatchewan had the ball 10 and a half minutes in the first quarter. That's crazy.
You're not winning a football game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think they ended up over 40 minutes of the game time. So doubled up the time that BC had. And like you said, their defense was playing well. Their offense was running the ball well. The passing game wasn't great, but it got done what it needed to. And to what you said, even the one deep throw to Robustelli there, he was wide open. If that had been a good throw, that's a touchdown.
Yeah.
As it was where the ball was placed, he had to twist around in the air and turn himself into a pretzel to even get it and get one foot down. So it's not like it was a stellar game from Mayer. But like I said, I think to me the biggest thing was what they wanted and what they got out of him was he didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah. It was interesting. We had all my family together Saturday night. We had a barbecue and the game was on. And so you had the TV on and all you could hear is we were with a bunch of BC fans, not a single Saskatchewan fan in the bunch. And just lots of yelling at the TV. So you're trying to have a conversation. And I just thought, oh, you're not winning. Just turn off the game. And then like I said, we ended up leaving early. But for a Saskatchewan fan, it was a consistent game. It was nice to see. Not for BC fans.
And really the only time that it looked like it was actually a game and not a complete blowout was that one drive that BC put together where they went hurry up midway through the second quarter. And for whatever reason, Saskatchewan had no answer to that.
And, and then at that point, they actually were up by a single point, 7-6, because Saskatchewan, for all of their moving of the ball, typical Jake Mayer, they ended up having to settle for 2 field goals because he couldn't get them in the end zone. I wouldn't be, if, they went into the bye on a 4-0 and they were talking about how much better it feels about going into a bye of 4-0 rather than 3-1. I wouldn't feel that great after that game if I was Saskatchewan. I'd be like, man, we got a lot of work to do because we won this game, but so what? There was a lot of things that they didn't do right. So.
How many penalties have Saskatchewan taken this year and how many yards that totals? And then how does that affect your overall game plan? Like if you can't have no matter how good your running is, no matter how good your receivers are, if your defense is on point, if you're taking all those penalties, you're leaving yardage out there that is hard to get back.
Yeah, I didn't see what was the final on the penalties this week with Saskatchewan there. I think they ended up somewhere around about 90 yards or so, which is more than you want, but much better than the week before. And for this season, that week before had been the anomaly, because up till then, the first two games, they didn't take many at all. And it just seems like they've been the worst of the poster childs for it. But this last 2 weeks, the penalties, in my mind, have gone up more across the board than we saw in the first couple of weeks of the season.
That's interesting. I'm wondering if that's because there's so many injuries. I'm wondering if that's hey, officials, let's get together and rethink these rules, or not rethink the rules, but how are we calling these games? I mean, I don't know if a lot of the plays that were called had anything to do with that, but that might be something.
I think a lot of that is just you've got second tier guys in there, and they just make more mistakes, so they get more calls, right?
Yeah. So. It's not like there's been suddenly a rash of terrible play that people are out to injure each other and all of that. It's just a lot of them are concentration penalties. Like there has been an inordinately large number of offsides and illegal procedure penalties for the start of this year. I'm not sure how many. I'll have to do some tracking on that, but it just seems like that's been the go-to penalty for getting called. And then, of course, every time they call it, it takes twice as long now because they have to go up to the replay center and make sure that who they saw moved was actually who moved first and stuff. I wish they could find a way to stop doing that. I hate the way that slows down the game. And you would think on something like that, you could just let the ref call it on the line.
Yeah, and then if it really matters, like figure it out after. Like if you need to penalize a specific player and it wasn't called exactly right, correct that after.
Yeah, for a 15-yard penalty one way or the other, I think it's worth them taking a good long look. 5 yards one way or the other doesn't need to slow the game up that much, I didn't think. What else did I have to say here? Oh, a couple of things that didn't get mentioned is sales for riders. Considering he's about, I don't know what his actual size is. He looks like he's about 180 soaking wet, and he put on another big hit this weekend. So something's got him eating his Wheaties, and he's been feeling them and really laying into people. And the other thing I was going to mention was the punter. I think it's Joe Coach, isn't it? Yeah. So I wondered if he found out how popular John Ryan used to be in Saskatchewan, and he's practicing his style, because there were 2 singles there that probably shouldn't have been. And that took Ryan almost his entire season back in the CFL to learn how not to do that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to bring up the Sales hit, and it was interesting because that was a big hit. But the thing that I thought about that was, as I watched it, was Butler, popped right back up after that hit, and he hung on to the ball. And it was a 4-yard or 5-yard reception. So as big as the hit was, it was 2nd and 5, and he popped right back up. So the hit was tremendous, but I knew that it would be exciting for Rider fans. The next time the Saskatchewan had the ball, there was a hit that I thought was as bigger, and that was Beaulieu coming over the middle and just laying out the receiver. And the receiver did not catch the ball. And it was a much longer pass in a second and, converting. So that was a much more effective actual hit than the one that Sales laid out. So
yeah, I'll give you that. That was classic safety play, the way he played that, and it was good. The only reason I keep mentioning it with Sales is because, again, if I see that from someone like Beaulieu or someone like, I'm trying to think of some of the safeties, like Hitchcock back in Hamilton day, but even the fellow who played with Winnipeg and then Montreal, I know him. He's from Kelowna here. Can't think of the name.
Exactly who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
Someone like that, they make a big hit in the backfield somewhere there, and I expect it. But a corner that's the size of Sales, I feel like I have to celebrate it a bit.
Yeah, and no disrespect, that was a big hit. It was serious, but it was interesting. Again, I thought, okay, but it still was a completed pass. So
the difference there being that Butler got hit with the framing hammer, and whoever the rider was got hit with the sledge from Beaulieu.
Yeah. The
extra weight helps.
And the difference was Saskatchewan 37, BC 17.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess that takes us in pretty much to the end, the last game of the week. Toronto 29 at Ottawa 16. And my headline for this one was Start the Car. because Toronto sure stole something there. They got outplayed the entire game and then just got those freak plays and walked away with a victory.
Like that, as much as I hate to give any praise to the Argos, I really, I missed the last half of the game because we were driving, but that first half, I was so entertained. What a great start. There were a ton of penalties as well, but that Argos rookie whose name I can't pronounce. What a name. Sluka. Yeah.
2 touchdowns of over 100 yards from a DB.
Well, the interesting thing is my notes, I wrote down is there was 10 minutes before anything happened. We were 5 minutes into there was 5 minutes left in the first quarter before anything happened. It was just 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out, 2 and out. Oh, look, something exciting. It was Crum going into the end zone and getting picked off. Ottawa left 17 points on the board at least, and that was what they left. 10 of those points turned into touchdowns for Toronto, so that's another step. You can't win like that. It was crazy circumstance. It was, I had to send out, embrace the chaos. Because it was just...
I did the math on it, and I think if things had sort of gone the way that they normally would in a football game, that I think would have been something like Ottawa 33, Toronto 11. But as it was, just bizarre stuff. Although I will say this, I was mentioning last week about BC and just hustling after the ball. I've always got that impression from Ottawa that they're a team like that, but it kind of bothered me when that the first of Solka's, I can't pronounce his name either. Anyway, the first of his big plays came. Frankly, Pimpleton fumbled the ball and then stood there and watched him pick it up and made no effort to even tag him down. And that, to me, feels kind of like the same, like the teams that are out there preaching in practice, every practice, with your offense, you protect the ball, and with defense, it's our ball. You go get that ball. When teams harp on that, you see it show up in the play. And I get the feeling that that's not something Ottawa really preaches a whole lot, or BC, because again, we've seen plays 2 weeks in a row that they've just been lackadaisical about giving up big plays.
Well, there's a couple things there, and I agree with you on that, where people, and as I've talked about it too, where people don't play to the whistle. You're supposed to play to the whistle. There was no whistle on that play until he ran into the end zone the other way. Now, in defense of Pimpleton, there was a lot of controversy on that play that wasn't talked about on the broadcast at all. Never even mentioned on the broadcast. And somebody brought it up on Blue Sky, and then it went back and forth quite a bit on Blue Sky. And I'm sure it was over on the Bad Place too. But it was because Franklin, as he came over, he went out of bounds, came back into the play, and then punched the ball out. Now, that was a legal play, but it doesn't look like it. So in Pimpleton's defense, he might have just thought, this play's whistled dead. I don't have to worry about it. That he punched the ball out. That's not a fumble. He might have thought that because it's such a bizarre circumstance, because he didn't tiptoe. He went right across the whole line and back into the play. It was blatantly obvious on the replay that he had done it. And people were, how can that happen? Well, I finally looked up the rule today because it was, back and forth that you can't do it. And yeah, you can do it. And then someone else clarified finally that that is allowed. You're allowed to go out of bounds, come back in, as long as you establish that you are back in bounds before you interact again on the play, which he clearly did. So it was a legal play. It was the right thing to do. I thought they should have done something about that on TV, showed it at all, because it was pretty obvious that he'd gone out of bounds, but they didn't. Ben Grant from the Argos broadcast explained the rule but I was surprised that it wasn't until today that people were finally getting the right information about it. But that was a tremendous play where Sluka just picked the ball up. Pimpleton was there by himself on an island, right? Because he's the receiver. He's the receiver.
Only one with a chance.
In the meantime, there's 4 Argos there because all the defensive guys have rushed to the ball. Sluka had 4 guys to block for him right away as soon as they all started trying to run down the field. Only Crum had a chance to catch him, and he didn't.
On that play for Franklin, he had a couple of penalties, and I don't know if he was the one that Dinwiddie was really upset about the week before, But when he punched that ball out, I thought, okay, here's his redemption moment, creating this opportunity that got run back for a touchdown. But I thought before then, like I think he had 2 penalties before that happened, and I thought, ooh, this guy has got to do something big. And then that happened, and I thought, okay, big play that he clearly was keyed into that play and wanted to make something happen to show coach, I can do this.
Because he wasn't focused before that, because like you said, the penalties, and they were both offside penalties when he was playing press coverage. I've never seen a DB take an offside playing that before. 2 of them in a game.
That kind of a game, there was so much going on. It was just bizarro stuff from start to finish.
Like I said, I was entertained.
Oh, yeah. And even Crum made some passes that weren't bad. He didn't look fantastic to me, but I'll say, frankly, he looked better than Schultz. Yeah, when the one game he played. I would still love to see Tyree Adams get a chance, but...
Me too. Me too. But I don't think Crum played badly. And in fact, I thought they were getting some momentum there into the late third and through mid part of the fourth quarter, and it looked like they were going to kind of make it back until Coxie made that great catch, and then kind of got the momentum back for Toronto. But yeah, and then we could talk about there was the Ryan Hunter big guy TD, which was terrific. And it was, 2 weeks in a row we've had it, and on exactly the same play. It was identical to the Winnipeg TD the week before. Same route, same everything. It was amazing. To like, I guess that works. Now everybody will be running it.
Yeah. As a defensive coach, what do you do now? That's great.
But I thought was better was Lee Jr. on Ottawa, the offensive lineman that caught the batted ball, and then the spin move and everything else. That was terrific. He was chugging there for 5 or 10 yards.
Yeah, and that 5 yards got them 3 points because it got them back in field goal range. Yeah. Yep. No, I love to see those. Like you said, it was the same play call, but it turned out completely different because whereas Eli from Winnipeg had to work for his, Hunter was.
Yeah.
He was the only one in the end zone.
Yeah, he cruised. No doubt about it.
Going back to what you said, GT, about no one catching that rule, like La Police was doing color commentary on that game, and he loves explaining things. So it's interesting that he didn't catch that one, because I'm sure that would have been like his thing.
Well, they also missed something later on between the two of them, between him and why am I thinking Smith? Where it was our second and goal, and it looked like Ottawa got a touchdown, but it wasn't called a touchdown. So then they had to come back out, and they kind of lost track of where the game was. And they came out and said, Rod Smith said, they're lining up for a third, for a 2-point conversion. And it was like, no, that's not a 2-point conversion. Yeah. Third and goal, 3rd and 1 again. So it did very much.
Well, and you had to be, because the only signal that you got on that was on, or at least the only thing I saw that was televised was on the play itself, when he went in and there was the whole crash up at the line judge came running in with the 3rd down single and pointing at the 1 yard line. But that was that's why I knew what was going on and knew that the announcers, I think it was Rod Smith in that one, wasn't it? That he was, he was a little off, but he figured it out eventually too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other problem I had with Crum, frankly, his accuracy was not bad, but he gets out of the pocket when he doesn't need to. And I don't even mean like his big wide scrambles. There were 2 or 3 times when he could have completed a pass from within the pocket. And I don't know if he just couldn't see the throwing lanes or what, but he shuffled usually to the left. Some do it once to the right, but usually to the left 2 or 3 steps, and then took 2 sacks doing that. Yeah. So I don't know what the issue is with him. Like I say, whether it's just he figures he's got no throwing lanes to put the ball through or what, but it didn't look impressive to me. I don't think he's anything but a 3rd string quarterback in this league, and I think they need to be looking somewhere else for 2nd.
Yeah, well, again, as we said, there was a reason he was 4th on the depth chart 2 years ago. He has gotten better, but he's not there yet. And whether he is ever going to get there, who knows? But he's certainly not there yet. And they desperately need Drew Brown back. They desperately need Drew Brown back.
Well, and at some point, your O-line gets frustrated. Like, how much more space and time can we give you if you're not going to use it for that play?
Well, and I wasn't paying attention to the O-line lineup as such, but I did hear a lot of commentary about that was not Ottawa's starting O-line again. Back to the injuries thing, they were missing a couple of key players apparently on the O-line, so that certainly doesn't help. But then Sluka got the block punt return as well for the touchdown. And that was an incredibly smart play by him to turn it back and go the other way.
He was crazy for doing that. I thought he was going down for sure. And then
because it was blocked in one direction and he went all the way to the end zone on that side. When you got all the big guys out there for the field goal team, you don't have a lot of smaller players on that kicking team, and they're all headed over there to make sure he doesn't come out. So then he turned it back the other way and it was wide open and off he went. So that was more impressive than the first one in my mind.
It was football smarts. And frankly, Ottawa would have been better off in that situation if they had been kicking a 40-yard field goal, because then they would have had their smaller team for coverage. Because you could see, once he was in the end zone with 300-pound guys around him, it didn't look like it was going to end up good, and it certainly didn't.
Yeah, it was a good weekend for the rookies, that's for sure.
One of the other things about the game, just to mention quickly, is that Toronto finally got a couple of players back, a couple of starters. Devaris Daniels came back, and he looked quite good. I thought he played really well. He looked sharp, made a couple of really nice catches. And also Janarian Grant came back. And while he wasn't the guy that made those, that punt return or anything like that, he had several decent returns. And I think he just puts a fear into the other team enough that they have to play differently than they would if he's not there. They cannot be as aggressive. So even just the mere fact that he's back there makes a difference. And this week he'll probably be better. So I think the Argos might be getting some players back, and we'll see if this kick starts their season. So a lot of teams that were 0-3, Toronto, Hamilton especially, maybe have kick-started themselves in the right direction this weekend. So.
And they'll need that, because they also said last week, they came out and said that Kelly won't be back till, what is it now, week 7? Because they have 2 games coming up and then a bye, and they said they were expecting him back after the bye, so that would be week 7 or 8, something there. But they'll be without him for a while, and that makes me wonder if maybe there's something else going on there with him and with the injury. I think about the fact that, look at Mazzoli, what really did him in was getting that injury in Saskatchewan, which should have happened to him, and then when it was healing, he got infected, and that kept him out for 2 years, and he's never been the same player. So I'm hoping we're not seeing something like that with Kelly, where it's going to have longer term effects and just the recovery. I mean, when you think about it, really, it's 7 months ago that he did that double fracture. So that's a pretty aggressive schedule anyway, but I hope he's going to be back soon. They need him.
I checked the injury report, and it said he was limited in practice. It didn't say not practicing. It said limited.
Yeah,
at least he's on
for 3 weeks now, though. So and again, you've got Pierce playing his games out in BC, giving Rourke reps in practice when everybody knows he's not going to be playing. And
well, I read a report today on TSN that Rourke took complete first team reps today.
That's good news for BC.
I don't know anything about an oblique injury like that, but I do know I was listening to one of the other podcasts out there, and somebody was talking about their baseball experience, and they said it's a common injury in baseball where it's from the throwing motion. It wasn't a contact. And they said everything that they've seen, it's at least a month before you can be looking at going back to it. Now, again, maybe less of a torquing motion on the torso in football. I don't know, but maybe he'll be back this week. Yeah, and I guess we should go on to that now. We're slowing down here, so let's get to that. So this week we were 3-1, since you two beat me into going with Hamilton. So that's not so bad. I don't have our full records here, but we'll go with that. So this week we're starting with the Winnipeg at Calgary on Thursday night. What are we thinking?
Boy, Oliveira's coming back, I heard. Claris is on a roll. But I don't know. I really want Calgary. It's the Stampede Bowl. Talking about CFL merchandising, I don't know. Stampede Bowl. I don't know.
With that really nice trophy that looks like it's a kid's Transformer toy or something.
Yeah. I posted it looks like Loki's helmet in red.
Yeah.
I'm taking Calgary. I just feel like they're going to come out. Dickinson rarely loses coming off of a bye. I just have a feeling that they're going to end up winning this game. I think it's going to be a close one. I don't think it's going to be a lot of points, but somehow, and I think your Calera statement makes sense that he's not going to have another week like last week. And I think the Stampeders are somehow going to pull it off. I don't think necessarily they're going to look great doing it, but somehow I think they're going to pull it off.
VA has to have it has to start clicking. So I'm going to go with you in Calgary too.
Yeah, Calgary's got this next 4 weeks in their schedule. I think makes or breaks Calgary. Doesn't necessarily make or break, but certainly tells us who they are over the next 4 weeks. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, BC. So that's if they can be 2-2 coming out of that, they'll be in pretty good shape.
I would definitely say so. And the podcast takes Calgary. I'm going to be the dissenting opinion here again. And frankly, if it wasn't for the fact that specifically the struggles that the Stampeders are having at linebacker, if Lee was still in there, I might go Calgary. I'd be seriously tempted for it. But Wilson, I've picked him up from when he was released in Hamilton, but I don't know that he's definitely the answer. I think it will be a good game. I think that VA is going to probably get definitely his first throwing touchdown this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if he gets maybe a trio of them even. But I do think in the end, the Winnipeg will control the clock with their running game enough and control the time and find a way to do what they do. Get an early lead, let it get close in the third, and then start just running the ball. They'll get themselves like a 6-point lead and start running the ball and take the entire last quarter running from one end zone to the other, and the game will be over. All right. Hamilton at Toronto on the Friday night. Somebody's got a very Hamilton-type shirt on there, MJ2. What are we going to do? Who are you picking for this?
You know what? I have to go with Hamilton. Like, after Bo Levi's game, I don't know. I feel like things are coming together. They've got some good energy going in. Toronto, I can't ever cheer for the Argos.
You don't have to cheer to pick them.
No.
True.
Although I got to say, I didn't mention this during. Just let me put this in. I didn't mention this during the game, but it was in my notes that at one point during that game, they panned the crowd and there was this great big burly guy in all of his Ticats gear and the hat and stuff. And he's cradling like a 1-year-old in a fully swaddled in a tiger cat blanket and everything. And they've got the camera on them. And the kid looks like he's just kind of half awake. And I fully expected him to turn to the camera and mouth, "Argos suck." Anyway, GT, what do you think?
I'm actually going Toronto. I'm actually, and not for, I just feel like, again, they've had a lot of things go wrong. They finally had some things go right, and they got some players coming back. I just feel like it's Toronto's night.
They are a tough team to beat even when they're down and they're at home. But I'm leaning towards the Ticats myself. I think that just based on what I've seen, the overall of the season from the two teams, I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it's going to be a very good Toronto-Hamilton game, but I think Hamilton will take it. So we're going with Hamilton. Then we got BC traveling across the country and going into Montreal. Saturday game, so they'll be there Friday night for St. Catherine Street. I don't know if they still do that, but...
Yeah. Again, this is like last week. This is all about quarterbacks, right? At this point in time, it's given the reports today, it's going to be Rourke versus MBT, Montreal's defense against BC's defense. So I don't know. I'm sticking with Montreal. Again, as I said last week, I have no faith in BC.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm also going for Montreal. Like after last week, like versus Saskatchewan, like I think you said it, coaching, all the things. If Rourke is back, is he even fully back? So,
well, and even if he's fully back, let's be honest, they've played 3 games now because they had a bye, but of those 3 games, they've had maybe 3 good quarters of football. the last half of the Edmonton game and when Winnipeg was in BC. No, I think I'm going Montreal as well, just because of the defense and another week of practice. MBT can't keep being that bad, I think. So are we unanimous across that then?
Yeah, we're going Montreal.
Okay. And the last one, which could be interesting, depending again on who's in there, because it is in Edmonton. It's Ottawa going out to Edmonton for Sunday night.
I'm taking Edmonton. Edmonton played 2 quarters. Ottawa only played 1. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll jump on that bandwagon with you. And not even a bandwagon. I really think Edmonton, you're right, starting to make those connections, and Ottawa doesn't have a lot of answer. I'll go with Edmonton as well.
Yeah. And I think that I would lean in and take Edmonton there too, just because if Brown is back, then I may change that on my personal one, because I think with Brown in there, they've got a chance to win it if he's back and if he's healthy. I expected a lot more out of Ottawa this year. They looked to me like a team that was really going to go places, and they've shown that without their starting quarterback, they don't have much to show for things.
I'm surprised in some ways about Ottawa's lack of a run game. I think Stanback's been a real big disappointment so far. He's looked occasionally good, but not great. Adam Aboye had a much better game on Saturday or Sunday night than Stanback did. So I'm disappointed they went out and made those moves, and yet they don't seem to have been using them properly. But I guess that's Tommy Condell's offense again. He never ran the ball in Hamilton. I don't know why we expect him to in Ottawa. And they just haven't fixed a lot of the problems that we saw last year in their secondary. I'm a little disappointed in Ottawa too. I thought they would be better. I didn't think they were the best team in the division, but I thought they would just look more cohesive than they have right now.
And Edmonton is looking solid enough, like you said, that I think they're starting to put some stuff together. It could come down to breaks one way or the other, but I think Edmonton. Okay. So there we go. I don't gamble, so I don't look at the odds, but I'm guessing we've probably picked a couple of underdogs there at least.
Yeah, again, we're far enough away that I haven't, the odds will change based on all these quarterback moves anyways, right? And all the injury reports. Like, we're way out there when we're picking Sunday night games on a Tuesday.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's almost possible. Yeah, but that's the schedule with it. But no, I expect, I'm just what I know about sort of how the lines go. I expect that even though it's in Winnipeg, that the Winnipeg-Calgary game, Winnipeg's probably going to be a +2.5 or something like that.
The one I did see that one because it's Thursday. There are 3.5 points. They are 3.5 point favorites in Calgary. Calgary's the home dog.
So they're really saying maybe a touchdown better. I don't know about that one, and I'm guessing again Ottawa will probably be favored over Edmonton. Any closing thoughts? And again, if you can tell people where to get you on social media, GT.
No, that's all I've got. It's GT at GT Barnum at Blue Sky, and find me there for very rarely, but I am there. I'm going to update the latest bids on the jersey. Apparently, there's huge rivalry going on, so I can't. I don't understand it, but I will say it seems to be out there. So we'll leave it at that.
Good. Well, hopefully it'll drive up the price a bit because all the money goes to CFL Fans Fight Cancer. And if anybody missed that last week, GT's auctioning off a KC Printers Hamilton #1 jersey. And that's auction will run through basically the season, and all the proceeds are going to CFL Fans Fight Cancer. So thank you for that.
My partner, he says I need to stop bidding on this jersey because I need to wait until October at the last minute and swoop in. But secretly, because he's the Stamps fan, I don't think he wants it in the house.
Well, you got to fight for your space too.
True.
If you get it, make sure the first time that he sees it, you've laid it out on his side of the bed. All right. Any social media handles you want to give out? Anywhere to get a hold of you if people...
If you want to get a hold of me, you can bug my sister, MJ. I think she's at Plants and Sports. I don't really have an Instagram, or I'm not really a social media person too much. I have them with work, but if you want to follow me or complain to MJ.
And there we go. Okay. All righty. And I, of course, am Old Man SAC on Blue Sky. And the overall show is on X as just the CFL Outsiders. If you want to hit us up there, if you want to send any emails or comments, then the show email is oldman, all one word, dot shoutingatclouds, all one word, at shaw.ca. And I'll put all those in the show notes, of course. I think that's about it. The regular bag stuff. Please subscribe, comment, all the stuff that'll appease the great logarithmic gods out there and get more people seeing the show. We always appreciate that. I hope you have a great week of CFL football. And for GT and MJ22, this is Old Man saying, get the hell off my lawn.